Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your network, your habits, and more. I'm your host, Aaron Haslip, and today we're going to be talking about how to focus when learning to code. I've been running code schools for the past 7 years, and the most prevalent problem I see for new students, and really for anyone, is their inability to focus. So anyway, today we're going to be getting really practical here. We're going to go over 4 steps on how to achieve focus so that you can actually land your dream job in tech. Let's get started. All right, if you were to Google how to learn to code, one of the first results that would pop up is a YouTube video that has millions and millions of views. It's essentially a guy saying that the key to learning to code is sitting at your computer and coding, right? It's typing on the keyboard with your eyes on the screen. So it's basically the ability to sit for long periods of time. And not just to sit for long periods of time, but to actually be able to focus for a significant enough period of time that you can learn the difficult concepts that are involved in learning how to code. So whether you're going through online tutorials, going through Code Academy, you are in a coding boot camp, or you're just working on a project, the essence of learning to code is your ability to focus. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through 4 steps to achieving focus, specifically when you're learning to code. Before we get to that point, let's talk about what focus actually is. What do we mean by focusing? Well, I'm sure you've experienced before that when you sit down at your computer, it's extremely tempting to check Facebook, your email, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is that you kind of gravitate toward when you're just chilling out with your computer. So focus is not necessarily not looking at Facebook, right? Because if you've determined that right now is the time of the day in which you should be browsing Facebook, then you're doing exactly what you should be doing by browsing Facebook. So don't guilt yourself into saying that you can never, dink around. That's what my wife and I use as our term for just sitting around on the computer looking at YouTube videos, Facebook, watching random videos, is dinking around. And sometimes we actually carve out time in our day in the evenings after the kids go to bed, just a few minutes before we kind of regroup and read books and do productive things. We just dink around a little bit, kind of just relieve some stress. So focus needs a better definition. And what I say focus is, it's intention minus distraction, right? So what do you intend to do during this period of time? And then how can you eliminate the distractions that will distract you from what you are intending to do in that moment? So if you are intending to use this hour to focus on learning to code, then you need to spend this time on learning to code, and you need to eliminate the distractions that might take you away from your original intention. And that being said, I think for a lot of us, we would say that it feels nearly impossible sometimes to actually have this focus. And there's a couple of reasons for that. 2 that I want to identify here are, number 1, we lack space and time, right? You lack the actual space in your house, the physical space that you would use to learn to code or to spend long periods of focused time. And you lack the time, right? Our schedules are extremely busy. I've got 3 kids, my wife's in grad school, I'm an entrepreneur. Space and time are difficult for me because I literally don't have an office in my house. I have a spare bedroom with a desk, and I don't normally have the time. So for me, I've either got to do it before the kids wake up or after the kids go to bed. That's the limited time in which I have to focus on things outside of work. And number 2, we're easily distractible, especially when focusing, because focusing takes work, right? You almost don't want to focus, right? It's difficult, especially when you're learning to code. Difficult things are difficult. They take a lot of energy, and kind of our natural reaction to when something is difficult and rub up against it is to take a break, step away from it, which sometimes is good, right? If you step away from coding, you take a walk, that's probably a good way to distract yourself. Distracting yourself by numbing your mind and completely shifting gears, watching a YouTube video, something like that, that's not good, because it's going to be much harder to come back to it. So we lack space and time, so we should probably create some space physically, and we should create some time in our schedules, which we're going to do that here in a little bit. And 2, we're easily distractible, especially when focusing takes work, right? When it's difficult. So that being said, let's jump in now to walking through these 4 steps for actually achieving focus. And I'm going to go ahead and name each of the 4 right here, and then we'll march through each step one by one. Number 1 is make a commitment, right? So we're going to look at what it means to actually make a commitment to coding. Number 2, create a coding first schedule. We'll define that in a moment, but the idea generally is let's prioritize coding and then reorient our schedule around that. We're going to look at what this looks like even if you're crazy busy, right? You've got non-negotiable commitments like a full-time job, kids, etc. Number 3, make coding a habit with rituals. And so coding is not just going to be something that you have to muster the energy up to do, but it's going to be something that is just habitual for you. You've got this ritual where you regularly code. Number 4, we're going to look at some strategies for staying focused. So when you're actually in the moment and you're working on coding, how can we stay engaged and stay focused? So let's get number 1 here. Make a commitment. So the idea of making a commitment is the difference between hoping versus planning, right? Hoping is, just hoping something would happen. Planning means you're actually going to ensure that thing happens. And so in this case, for this moment in your life, you are committing to learning how to code. That means you need to reorient your entire life around that goal and really ahead of time decide how important is that goal for you? Do you actually want to realize that goal, or are you okay if coding is just a hobby, you build a couple fun projects? Now, if you're in the process of hopefully changing careers, then I'd say few things should probably matter to you in this season more than this goal of learning to code. You probably have some great motivations around learning to code, such as being able to provide better for your family, have a better work-life balance schedule, doing something that you love. Those are incredible motivations. Write those down, name those, and dig into them. You want to, at some point, get accountable, right? So have someone else in your corner that's there to push you. Maybe this is a friend, a family member. For me, early on, this was my wife, right? My wife knew that this is what I wanted to do. She saw me coming home from work every day, miserable, and just for her own sake, she wanted me to not be miserable anymore and to be able to do something I love. So she held me accountable to actually working hard in this area. You can create SMART goals. That's another idea for making a commitment. A SMART goal is this idea that you've got a goal that's big, it's defined, it's motivating, it's time bound. Just Google that acronym SMART goals and you can understand more of what that means. And so, really being specific about how you want to learn how to code, what it means to learn how to code, not just, hey, I'm going to learn to code, but I'm going to learn JavaScript, this month, for example. That's a great way to create a SMART goal. And then lastly, I'd say plan to sacrifice, right? This is going to be a sacrifice. It's going to take your time. It is going to take your money. It's going to take your relationships, and it's going to take your comfort, right? All of those will have to be sacrificed to some extent for this to be able to be a reality in your life where you have a job as a software engineer. But in the end, you will ideally have more time, more money, better capacity for relationships, and you'll be comfortable in your own skin in some ways because you'll be doing what you love. So it is definitely worth it. So number 1, make a commitment. These are, just a few ideas of what it looks like to make that commitment, but get specific to what it is that you are committing to and really have a vision for what life will look like at the end of the road whenever you actually land that first job as a software engineer. So that was number 1. Number 2 here, we are going to look at what it means, this is real practical, to create a coding first schedule. So coding first schedule, I got this from this idea of personal finance. And a lot of these personal finance gurus we listen to, whether it be Dave Ramsey or just name the guru, they always talk about this idea of, if you want to save more money, don't just think of savings as whatever money is left over at the end of the month from your expenses, right? So normally the way we think of savings as whatever our income is minus expenses is our savings. What they encourage us to do, though, is to save more. You plan out your savings first. So now the formula is not income minus expenses equals savings, but rather income minus savings equals expenses, right? So basically, in some ways, you should determine how you're going to spend your money based off of how much you want to save. And so in their world, We're thinking about prioritizing retirement funds, investing in the stock market. We want to prioritize that. So instead of buying a brand new car, we're going to buy a used car for cash. And instead of putting $500 a month toward the monthly payment that we would for a new car, we're going to put $500 a month toward a investment fund that's going to accrue compounding interest. And a lot of times, if you think about this, it ends up reaping huge rewards. At the end of those 5 years, which is a normal kind of car payment length of time, you're going to have like 40 grand in the bank if you put $500 a month into a fund that accrues compounding interest. So the same thing can be said for our schedule as well. Instead of saying, hey, the time I'm going to spend coding, which you've already identified is in this season, one of the most important things you can spend your time on, instead of saying my coding time is going to be my schedule, right, whatever your schedule is, minus the commitments you make is your coding time, right? And by the way, let me define these things real quick. By schedule, I mean all the time you have available. Every one of us has 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, right? So we all kind of get the same schedule. And then we can fill it in with a few items that we want to fill it in with. Obviously, work, managing your kids, leisure time, sleep, eating meals. There's a lot of things we could put on our schedule. But normally when we think about something new that we're adding here, which is in this case coding time, let's just call it the time spent learning to code, is you take your schedule, you subtract whatever commitments you have, and then that's the margin you've got left to invest in coding time. And I would say, again, let's flip that. Let's say that let's look at your schedule, and the first thing you're going to write into your schedule is your coding time, the time you want to spend coding, and then you're going to fill in other commitments after that. Now, obviously, in some ways, you can't do this in the same way. Just like, for example, in the previous example with finances, you in some ways can determine how much you're going to spend on a house, how much your mortgage is, but you're not really going to be able to say that you have no mortgage, right? Just like with your schedule, you might be able to determine which job you have, but probably you're not going to change jobs right now. Maybe you will to quit your job or change jobs to learn how to code. I think that's actually a good move probably. But you're probably not going to be able to change those things. So you've got some fixed commitments. And so here's 4 terms we're going to talk about real quick here in this exercise that I really want you to go through of creating a coding first schedule. So your schedule, right? That's the first vocabulary word. We've already talked about that. That's the total number of hours you get each week. It's 168 hours, right? Everyone's got the same schedule. 2, your fixed commitments. And we're going to call these commitments, these are your commitments that you just cannot sacrifice, right? You can't not take your kids to school. You can't not prepare dinner for your family. You can't not go to work. So those things are going to be fixed into place. When we think about our fixed commitments, let's think about the bare minimal commitments that we've got fixed in our schedule that we just can't change. Number 3, we've got our variable commitments. These are weekly commitments that you can sacrifice. Maybe these are things you really don't want to sacrifice, that seem really hard to sacrifice. But if it's not absolutely necessary, then we're going to call this a variable commitment. This is your kids' soccer, right? They don't have to play soccer for a season and they will survive. This is your time watching Netflix in the evening. This is any kind of leisurely activities you would do on the weekends. These are all potentially things that you can sacrifice. I think as we look through this, though, you're going to see here in a moment that you're actually not going to have to sacrifice as much of this as you think. And then number 4, of course, is coding time. Like that's the time that you're going to spend learning to code. So here are the steps that we're going to go through to actually use these 4 items to create our coding first schedule. Step 1 is going to be set your weekly coding time commitment, right? This is sort of your savings goal, if you will. How much time do you want to spend each week learning to code? I would say for actual progress on a part-time schedule, if you're not going to quit your job and go all in, 15 to 20 hours is probably strong, right? 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, it's just honestly not going to be enough. There is so much to learn when it comes to learning to code. And by the way, this is another podcast in itself, but I don't think you're going to make it all the way to getting a job by just learning on your own. It's been very rare that I've seen it, but I think everyone should start off with a hefty investment in themselves, by themselves, in learning to code so that they can be at a really solid point before they ever jump into any other kind of program or anything else. So set your coding time commitment. Number 2, we're going to add our fixed commitments to our schedule. And then third, we're going to fill in with our variable commitments. So what this might look like, and I'm just, kind of picture a spreadsheet. We've got a spreadsheet that you can download on our website. Links are going to be in the show description for that. But this spreadsheet template will say, let's say that I have to work from 8 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. Those are some fixed commitments that I just cannot change. Let's say that I'm helping my kids get ready from 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning, Monday through Friday. Those are some fixed commitments that I cannot change. And let's say from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at night, I've got family time, right? I'm making dinner for and with the kids. We're eating dinner together. We're doing the bedtime routine. And for me, my kids go to bed at 7. And so that seems like a doable schedule. So the time that I have left over so far is I've got a fully blank Saturday and Sunday. I've got, think about the times that you would wake up and go to bed. For me, realistically, you could wake up at 5 a.m. and go to bed at 10 p.m. So that means in this schedule, from 5 to 7 a.m. is free. And then from 7 to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday are free. And again, we've got all day Saturday and Sunday. So let's think next about our coding time, right? We haven't put in anything else, no leisurely activities. I'm going to work, I'm helping my kids get ready, I'm spending time with them in the evenings. I want to be a good, husband and father. So I'm going to put in coding time next. And for me, the couple of ways you could do that, I'm thinking let's do Tuesday, Thursday, right? Because I want to sleep some. Tuesday, Thursday from 5 to 7, let's do coding time. So there are, 4 hours right off the bat. And let's say from Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 p.m., I'm going to do another 2 hours of coding. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That is 12 hours of coding time in my week so far. You notice I'm going to bed at 10 p.m. So I've got from 9 to 10 to not code. That might mean I spend some time with my wife. Maybe I read a book, maybe watch Netflix. That can still exist in our life. And then Saturday and Sunday, for me, my kids kind of do a quiet time where mommy and daddy do our own thing. If you don't have kids, to be honest, this is going to be, much simpler in some ways. You probably got a lot of other commitments. But for me, from that 1 to 3 p.m. on the weekends, my kids are kind of doing their own thing. So I'm going to put coding time for that on Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. So that's 4 more hours for me. So that's 12, 14, 16. And let's say Sunday night, right? Sunday night for us kind of, it feels like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night. Recall that I didn't put any coding time down for Friday night. I'm just not going to come home from work on a Friday and focus on something else that's difficult to focus on. So let's do Sunday night from 7 to 9 for 2 hours. I'm going to code as well. So I've got 18 hours so far in my schedule. I've got 18 hours of time spent learning to code on top of going to work every day, getting my kids ready for school every day, being home for dinner every night, right? So that is doable so far. So now I've got a bunch of gaps though. And just like with a good budget, you want to make every moment, every hour count. Just like in a budget, you want to make every dollar have a job. That's like a principle of personal finance. And so for me, I'm going to fill in Monday from 5 to 7, I'm sleeping, right? Wednesday from 5 to 7, I'm sleeping. If I'm going to get up super early on Tuesday, Thursday, I'm going to want more sleep. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 5 to 7, I'm sleeping. I'm not getting up early. You could, right? There's nothing wrong with it. You could get up early. You could even move some of these coding times around from the evening into the morning. There's flexibility in that. From 9 to 10 p.m. on Monday through Thursday, I've just got downtime, right? I've got downtime. There's margin. I'm watching Netflix with my wife, reading a book, something like that. From 7 to 10 p.m. on Friday night, right? Kids go to bed. Wife and I, we either have date night on Friday night. We can just relax, chill, do whatever else we want. On Saturdays, right, from 7 a.m. when my kids normally get up to, I think I said 1 p.m. That's when I'm going to do coding time. I've got margin, right? Nothing planned. We can do anything we want. We go to the farmer's market with the family, go on a family bike ride, have kids do soccer, whatever it is. And then from 3 to 10 p.m. On Saturday, I've got margin as well. We can do whatever we want, have people over, have friends. Same thing on Sunday. I've got 7 to 1 p.m. to be able to do whatever. Then again, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., we've got margin so that I can do, I'm gonna do some coding from 7 to 9 on Sunday night. And then from 9 to 10, I'm going to have some downtime. So essentially what I want you to see here, by the way, we could rearrange any of this that we want. I've got a schedule in which I've got a full-time job. I've got kids. I've got other commitments. I've got weekend commitments. I've got margin. I've got downtime with my wife. I've got a date night scheduled in here. And I'm spending 18 hours of time coding. And that might sound surprising to you because you might think about your own schedule and say, there's no way I've got time for that. Why does it seem like my schedule is so jam-packed with other stuff? And the reason is you don't spend your time well, right? None of us do. We spend so many hours upon hours doing nothing, and that's okay, and I think most of our life that's fine. We should have more margin than we're going to have this. But in this season, you can sacrifice checking your email at random times. You can sacrifice getting on Instagram, scrolling away till your mind goes numb. You can sacrifice Facebook, Netflix, what other kind of things that you tinker around with. You can sacrifice those and make every moment in your day count. And by the way, this includes rest, right? This schedule that I just created here, it includes rest so that you can chill out and recharge, right? And I think a good balance in life is to have a balance of rest and work. And so this schedule that we just created, it's sustainable. You're going to be doing 18 hours a week of coding for however many months. And so I think it's something that you can definitely do. So if we were to look at kind of our total hours from the schedule that I just outlined, our fixed commitments, we've got 60 hours a week of work, family time, getting the kids ready for bed. We've got 18 hours a week of coding time. We've got 41 hours a week of variable commitments. And we've got 49 hours a week of sleep time, 7+ hours a night. So I think that's plenty of time. So definitely go through this. If you didn't do this while I was talking, then you should take some time after this and create your coding first schedule. Go to the show notes, our website. We've got a template there for you to download a spreadsheet where you can actually make this schedule yourself. All right, so number 1, make a commitment. Number 2, create a coding first schedule. Now we are at number 3, make coding a habit with rituals. All right, so let's talk about what do I mean by rituals. All right, let's imagine that your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. Oh man, that sounds like death, but you've just slept over 7 hours, so you don't feel that groggy. Your coffee, right? It's already been made for you. If you're like me, I want to drink coffee the first thing in the morning before I do anything else. I'm drinking coffee. Your slippers, right? Because I hate walking around the house without something on my feet. Your slippers are right by your bed. Your headphones are out on your desk where you're going to do some coding. Your headphones are right there and ready for the playlist you're listening to. I like to listen to instrumental music. It helps me focus. Your computer is open. It's charging, right? So you've got battery. You've got your favorite sitting spot right in front of you. All the necessary applications, VS Code, whatever it is you're learning to code, are open. They're ready to go. And you know exactly what it is that you want to tackle for these next 2 hours. You had it in your mind before you went to bed that tomorrow I'm working on learning about arrays and JavaScript. Now, how could this all be possible that everything is ready to go? And by the way, if you woke up in this scenario and you had in your mind that I'm going to spend 2 hours learning to code, and all these things were true for you, that your coffee was there, your headphones, your slippers, your computer was ready, you knew what to work on, right? That would be so much easier to jump in and actually work on this. And these all happen based off of this idea of rituals, things that you do regularly that help prepare you for whatever it is that you're aiming to do. And there's this old quote that says, every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought, right? So on the other side of this, the other side of the coin here is those mornings, and I've had this before, where I wake up and I realized I didn't set, I've got a coffee maker. It's a really cheap one. It's like $25, but you can set the time in which it's going to brew. Well, I wake up in the morning, I realize that there's going to be no coffee. I'm out. Like, I'm going to roll over. I'm going back to bed. If I don't have coffee, the first thing when I wake up, it's just a damper. So, if you have those mornings, it's cold, it's you don't have your sweatshirt, you don't have your socks or your slippers. It's just not worth it. So What we're going to talk about is rituals, how we get those things set up every day. And for me, I've got an evening ritual and I have a morning ritual. So these are things that I do every night before bed and every morning when I wake up. And I just have, at first, I don't do this anymore, but at first I had a note on my phone that was very easily accessible that had these rituals. So I had one called Evening, and it's got bullet points of exactly what I should do in what order. So, and there's usually, it starts off with a trigger. And so for me, the trigger is after I put the kids to bed, I will ... And there's a list of things that I will do. So the trigger is after I put the kids to bed. And by the way, the trigger is awesome because it reminds me that there's something I need to do. I just need to look at my note and it will tell me all the steps I need to do next. And the trigger is something that's going to happen no matter what. I swear, I'll never forget to put my kids to bed, right? It's one of the best times. I love my kids to death. They're so much fun. But every night I love putting them to bed because it means I get to relax and there's some me time. So for me, that's the trigger. After I put my kids to bed, I will. And then here are the bullet points that I've got for my evening ritual. I'll prepare my coffee. That means for me, grinding the beans, setting the timer. I'll prepare lunch for the next day, so I'm all ready to go whenever I go to work. I set out my slippers and my sweatshirt in my office. Remember, I have a desk in the guest bedroom. I'll organize my office desk with my computer. If I'm going to go for a run that morning, I'll put my running clothes out. I'll put my bag, my headphones. And then before I go to sleep, right, that's my other trigger, I'll set my alarm for 5 a.m. So that way I know when I wake up, there's coffee, there's comfortable clothes because it's usually kind of cold in the house in the morning. I've got my headphones, my computer, whatever I need to do to start work, or sometimes I read in the morning, or sometimes I go for a run in the morning. All that is there and ready for me. So that is my evening ritual. I've also got a morning ritual, right? So my alarm goes off at 5 a.m., right? That's my trigger, obviously. It's a pretty obnoxious trigger, but it's a trigger. I get out of bed. And then I've got this bullet point that goes step by step into exactly what I do. After I get out of bed, I go to the kitchen and I pour my coffee, right? Then I take my coffee, I walk into my guest bedroom, which has an adjacent bathroom. I set my coffee on my desk. I go into the bathroom and usually I have to pee. So after I pee, normally then I weigh myself just to keep track of, calories in, calories out, how I'm progressing in that. After I do that, I put on my comfy clothes for sitting down. I get my coffee, put my headphones in, and then I start whatever the thing is I'm working on, right? It might be writing, it might be reading, it might be coding, depending on the season of my life. For you in this scenario, it'd probably be coding, and you already know what it is you're working on. So those are my morning and evening rituals. And that ensures that those days, by the time I get to the breakfast table with my kids, I've knocked out one of the most important aspects of my life, some kind of habit or ritual that's going to have me prepared for the day. Now, it doesn't always work out. I'm not always the happiest guy in the morning. Sometimes I sleep in. This isn't always something that I do, but whenever I do, it usually sets my day up for success. So when it comes to learning to code, this is exactly what you need to focus on. And your rituals might look different, right? So maybe you're coding when your kids go to bed, and so you've got other rituals, or at some other part of the day, you've got other rituals around helping you make this a habit and an enjoyable habit, right? You've got the ideal scenario, the ideal setup going for you. And maybe that means you've got to save some money and get a nice monitor, a better computer, whatever it is. But these rituals will help make sure that whenever you get there, that you are ready to go. So some principles here for these rituals is, one, for me, my morning defines my day. My morning goes well, my day will go well. Two, remember that rituals are usually triggered by small events that set off a chain. Then create this list, right? And make sure that each bullet on your list in your ritual is small and attainable. Make the coffee, set my slippers out, whatever it is. And then four, my rituals are time tested and they're adjusted accordingly. Maybe you realize that you've got a mistake in your ritual. You need to add something in, you need to remove something. Make sure just to adjust them as you go. Just take a note on your phone and adjust the ritual, add something, remove something, etc., to make sure these rituals work for you. But this is going to ensure that you've got a habit of not only coding because it's already in your schedule, but you've got a habit of being prepared to have the best environment possible for focusing when you get there. All right, that comes to our fourth one to kind of review here, our 4 steps. We already looked at number 1, making a commitment. Number 2, creating your coding first schedule. Number 3, making coding a habit with rituals. And now number 4, we're going to talk about strategies for staying focused. So this is the scenario in which you've got your coffee or whatever it is for you that you need. You've got your headphones, you got your space. Now you're going to sit down and start coding, and then it gets hard. How do you stay focused during this period of time? And to help us think about what it means to stay focused, let's revisit our definition for focus. Remember, our definition was intention minus distraction equals focus. So that first piece is incredibly important. What are your intentions, right? Another way to say this is, what's your mission and vision? What do you hope to be your future reality? So it's going to feel like a little bit of a detour from where we're going right now in terms of staying focused, but we're going to back up and think about what it means to create a bigger vision for yourself so that you have intention, so that you know why in these next few minutes, this next 25 minutes, this next hour, why is it important that you focus on, learning about arrays and JavaScript, for example? Why should you not be distracted? So to do that, we're going to think about our life in time buckets. And this is really how I plan my life. And so we are going to create a plan, a life plan, literally a plan for your life that's going to give you a snapshot of what you want your life to be like over the next 10 years, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, what you hope it to look like 1 year from now, 3 months from now, what you want to accomplish this week, what you need to do today, and ultimately what you need to do over the next 25 minutes, right? And we're going to get to this, but the 25 minutes is based off of this productivity method called the Pomodoro method. And it's this idea that you set a timer for 25 minutes, you stay focused on working for 25 minutes, timer goes off, then you take a 5-minute break. So let's give an example here of what you could do in each of these buckets, an example of what a goal could be. So let's say 10 years from now, your goal is to become financially independent. So what I mean by financially independent is you don't have to work for money. You've got so much money saved up that you've got passive income coming from investments or something. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's something like you want to be a senior architect at Google. It's a big goal. And this could be a career goal. It's, if we're thinking about coding, it should be a career goal. So what does that look like in 10 years from now? Maybe 5 years from now, it looks like, hey, you only work 20 hours a week. Maybe you're contracting as a software engineer and you've got so much money saved up in investments, if that's the financial independent goal. Maybe if the goal is, software architect at Google, in 5 years from now, you are a mid-level senior or senior engineer at Google. 3 years from now, maybe if your goal is financial independence, you want to start your own software consultancy. Maybe if your goal is senior architect at Google, then your goal is just to land a first job at a thing company like Facebook, Google, Netflix, etc. Over the next year. Maybe your goal probably for all of these is just to land your first coding job. And a year from now, you want to be working as a software engineer. Maybe over the next 3 months, think about quarter, you want to learn JavaScript. Breaking it down to this week, maybe this week you need to focus on learning functions. Maybe that means today you need to learn arrow functions. And how do you learn arrow functions today? Maybe you, over the next 25 minutes, you complete the Codecademy functions module, right? Codecademy.com. So you have a plan for right now, if I can complete the Codecademy functions module over the next 25 minutes, then that can ultimately lead me to becoming financially independent or a senior level software engineer at Google. So one way I make plans and set goals for these larger buckets, the 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, and 1 year, is by ultimately creating a life plan. And a life plan doesn't have to be anything super complex, but essentially this is how I do my life plan. I think about the different accounts I have in my life. Again, using the analogy of personal finance, these accounts are not unlike the accounts that you might have personally. You might have a checking account for spending money. You might have a savings account for saving money. You might have an investments account. In your own life, you might have a spiritual account, right? Maybe you're a person of faith and you believe in God and go to church, and that's your kind of your spiritual life. Maybe you have an account for your marriage, right? You're investing in your marriage and hope to see returns on that. You have an account for your kids and your family. You You have an account for your health, right? You need to invest in working out and eating right. You have an account for your friends, and you need to invest in having good friendships, an account for your career, and an account for finances. And basically what I want to do is for each of these accounts, I just named 7 there. For each of these accounts, I want to think about at the end of my days, right? And this seems kind of morbid, but whenever I am, at my funeral, which I won't experience because I won't be there, but whenever everyone's at my funeral, what is it that I want them to say about me? How do I want to be remembered by these different people, my wife, my kids, my friends, my colleagues? And based off of that, I think about these 7 accounts, and I think about how do I want this area of my life to look like 10 years from now. So 10 years from now, what do I want my marriage to look like? And I write some sentences, where I've got literally just some description of how my marriage looks. My wife and I, we go on a weekly date night. We're best friends. We have a hobby, whatever that is, I write that down. My health, I hope I weigh X amount of pounds, have this percentage body fat, can run, this distance, can do this many pull-ups 10 years from now, whenever I'm 42 or however old I'll be. And do this for your career, and maybe even just more specifically, obviously, for your career. So do that for the 10, 5, 3, and 1 year marks of this is where I want to be. And actually, I think doing this for your whole life, even though right now our goal is learning to code and staying focused and getting a job as a software engineer, I think doing this for your marriage, if you're married, kids and family, if you've got kids, your health, your friends, your career, finances, it's important because learning to code, your motivations for doing this will ideally impact all these other areas in a positive way. So what I want you to see is that your future, right? Your future hinges on your ability right now to focus on learning to code, on getting these intentions together, on eliminating distractions. Your future, the future health of your life depends on this. And that's what I want you to understand at that point. Okay, so when we get beyond the 10, 5, 3, and really 1 year bucket, we can start to think about annual planning. So that 1 year bucket, I'm going to lean into a little bit more. Oftentimes, I like to set SMART goals for my year. I usually do this at the beginning of the year in January, but you can do it any time of the month, really. And I like to set goals of what I want to do every year. So one example in the account for finances might be, I want to max out my Roth IRA by June 30th, right? Max contributions for a Roth is $6,000. That means saving $1,000 a month for 6 months. You could have some coding related goals, but that's essentially what I do. I go through each one of these accounts annually: spiritual, marriage, kids, family, health, friends, career, finances. I look at what are my 10, 5, and 3 year goals. If I want to get to them, what do I need to do this next year? Then based off of that, I have this year kind of plan full of these SMART goals that very specifically outline what I want to do. And hopefully I don't have more than around 10 goals for the entire year. Then I go and I get a little bit more granular. I focus in a little bit more quarterly. So for me, that means every December, I'm planning for Q1, right? So January, February, March. Every March, I am planning for Q2. April, May, June. Every June, you get the point. I'm creating a quarterly planning. And during that quarterly planning, I ask myself, what do I need to do in the next 3 months to get me closer to my annual goal? And what's nice about the fact that you've already done your 10, 5, 3, and 1 year plan is during this quarterly month, you don't have to think about what do I need to do this year? What do I need to do the next 3 years? You've already done that. You are literally not thinking about anything other than what do I need to do over these next 3 months to get me closer to where I want to be over by the end of this year. And that year obviously will come closer and closer and closer as you get through the quarters. And what I do is I basically have SMART goals that are a little bit more granular over these next quarters. So for example, if I said, hey, by June, I want to max out my IRA, and I'm thinking about Q1, then what do I need to do in Q1? Well, Q1 is I need to save basically $3,000. So I've got to figure that out. What does it take to save $3,000? Are there expenses I need to cut out? Do I need to open the account? I think about next actions, right, for that quarter of what I need to do. And then I basically relegate only a part of my annual plan to those 3 months because I can't accomplish everything that I have planned for the year in those 3 months. So I just have a smaller subset of goals for that quarter. And then from that quarter, and again, hopefully yours has something in here related to learning to code, right? That's ultimately what you're breaking down here. I do weekly planning. And for me, I've got a ritual, a planning ritual, kind of like your morning and evening ritual, but I have a weekly planning ritual where I go through and basically clear all of my inboxes. I take account of what I did last week, and I think about this next week. What are the big 3 things that I want to accomplish, right? If nothing else happens, if my to-do list, which has maybe hundreds of items on it, if it just doesn't get done, right? If nothing else matters, what are the 3 things at the end of this week that I'll be happy having done? And the place I look for that is my quarterly planning, right? This is where I have the urgent, important items that I need to get done this quarter. And sure, maybe there's other things that come up, but those aren't the most important things to me because I didn't put those in my quarterly or annual or life plan goals. And so during this weekly planning, I'll map out this week, there are 3 things that I need to get done, right? And only those 3 things and nothing else matters. And if I got these 3 things done, I'd be happy. And then I do this on a daily basis, right? At the end of each day, I review the day I just had. I look at my weekly big 3 and I think about what is it that I need to do tomorrow. So then I have a daily big 3. If I just did these 3 things today, I would be happy. Forget the to-do list. What 3 things do I need to do today to just be happy? And then, and by be happy, I mean, having been productive enough. And then I'd break it down to the 25 minutes. And that's where the Pomodoro technique comes into play, where I'm thinking to myself, all right, based off of the 3 things that I want to do today, how do I break that up into Pomodoros? And oftentimes I'll do this. I'll literally say, okay, a Pomodoro, I can do 1 every 30 minutes. I can do 2 in an hour. So if I want to spend 6 hours, right, focused time working on something, then that means I need to devote 12 Pomodoros to it. Or for you, if you're learning to code, you've got 2 hours of coding, maybe try and knock out 4 Pomodoros. And what I love about the Pomodoro method is you set a timer for 25 minutes and you stay focused for those 25 minutes. And so if you look up and your timer's going, it means you can literally do nothing else. You're not going to the bathroom, you're not checking Facebook, you're not taking your brain off of whatever it is that you'd already predetermined that you're going to focus on for these 25 minutes. And then you just go at it, right? You just focus for those 25 minutes and you don't do anything else. And when the timer goes off, you breathe, right? You set a 5-minute timer, you get up, you go for a walk, you get a snack, whatever it is you need to do, and you come back to it and you knock out another 25 minutes. And then you do it again. And then sooner or later, you realize you've done 4 Pomodoros. And at the end of the day, right, you can go to bed and you can sleep happily. You can rest your bed at your pillow knowing, man, I set out at the beginning of the day to do 4 Pomodoros on learning to code. I don't know everything. I'm a little bit better though, right? I'm a little bit better to those goals. Today, I did 4 Pomodoros on learning about JavaScript functions. I am not a senior software architect running search for Google. I am not financially independent. I'm not an entrepreneur yet, but I took steps to get closer to that. And if you keep doing that for long enough, then you can do anything, right? And so that's the idea. Focusing when learning to code is all about taking this big picture vision, one that's motivating to you that you actually want to accomplish, and then breaking it down into smaller buckets and then getting after it, right? And having rituals set up in your life that make a habit out of this, that allow for time in your life and space in your life where you're able to still invest in the things that are important with family and friends, you're able to work hard, able to rest well. You can do all of it. You just have to be strategic about it. And let me tell you, I think the greatest ingredient to this whole formula that I'm kind of talking through here is this idea of daily. I want to help you connect just how much learning to code should mean to you, to the rest of your life, right? To the people that are in your life, to your well-being, maybe even your happiness, your health. This will change your life if you can commit to it. Anyway, that does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. To learn more about our online coding program, Parsity, visit parsity.io. It's parsity.io. And I'll see you next week for another episode.